Welcome to our weekly Forex market analysis, and this is for preparation for the week of April 2nd to the 6th, 2018. Just a quick disclaimer before we get started. This is for educational purposes only. Trading is a risky business, so please be careful with your money. As usual, we will start off by taking a look at our Forex Factory calendar here, see what's coming up, and then we'll start looking at the charts. So first thing here, it is Easter, a long weekend for a lot of places. So it is a holiday in several places. Just keep that in mind. Even on Friday, if you notice that your spreads were large, that's because a lot of the traders are not trading during this time because a lot of people have taken the long weekend or they have taken time off and they're not at their desk. So when that happens, the liquidity in the market drops. And what that looks like for us is that the spreads will be quite large. So if you have a 2-pip spread, normally you may see a 4-pip or 5-pip or 6-pip spread. So the spreads are usually large and there's not enough participation in the market. So a smaller order can push the prices around. So just be mindful. And this will be the case on Monday as well, because a lot of places have Monday off. So just keep that in mind. In the US, even though it's not a holiday, but there will be low liquidity conditions because some people do take that extra long weekend and don't start till Tuesday. So just keep that in mind. But in terms of the news, the ISM manufacturing PMI numbers will be important. And these are the leading indicators to our retail sales. So this will be important here. A very important thing coming up for Australia here is the cash rate and RBA statement. At this point, the interest rate is not expected to go up. But what will be important will be how the central bank comments on these things or phrases, their outlook on the economy, their forecast on where they think in terms of where they think the economy is going, in terms of growth, so growth forecast, and how they view things. So that will be very important. So far, Reserve Bank of Australia has not been overly bullish on the economy, and they have not really pushed the interest rate talk or monetary policy change. However, they have not cut it either, right? So there's only one way they can go, which is up, but they have not been ready to increase the interest rates so far. So now the longer we go into this cycle, the closer they start becoming to an interest rate hike. So we're not looking for an interest rate hike right now because that would be completely bullish for Aussie. That would push Aussie up. However, at this point, again, the commentary will be important. So if they start talking about, maybe it's time to start looking at our monetary policy, or the growth forecast is really strong and there's pressure on inflation, that type of stuff will be bullish for Australian dollar. However, if they say the opposite, they say, well, we are concerned about a global economy and that may have an impact on Australian economy, that type of stuff will be bearish for Australian dollar. So keep that in mind as we trade here. So this will definitely have an impact on Australian dollar. And then going into our London session, we have manufacturing PMI numbers. Again, these numbers will be important. So for UK there. And then we have retail sales number for Australia. Wednesday, we have, again, construction PMI numbers for British pound. Now we are into April, so we are back into our non-farm payroll stuff. So first is ADP, usually ADP non-farm, usually always ADP non-farm on Wednesday. And this will have an impact because this usually comes before the non-farm payroll. So this one will be important for the US. Then ISM non-manufacturing PMI. So all these PMI numbers are leading indicators for retail sales. That's why they are important numbers to pay attention to. Crude oil inventories will have an impact on oil and US dollar as well. And then trade balance for Australia. Trade balance, especially these days, because of the trade war issues, and there's been so much talk about tariffs and things like that. So trade balance has become a more of an important number to watch out because US is actively trying to reduce the negative trade balance. Australia generally has a positive trade balance because they are big exporters. So if it comes, so right now looks like it's going to decrease, but if it comes in even below this number, that would be negative for Australian dollar. If it comes above this forecasted number, that would be positive for Australian dollar there. And then Thursday, we have services PMI number for British pound, trade balance for Canada. Canada is, again, in NAFTA negotiations with the US. And so Canada and Mexico, both, they are in NAFTA negotiations, which haven't been going that well. And the whole tariff talk, first, US and Canada and Mexico got, they weren't impacted by it. But now the NAFTA negotiations are not going so well. So that will have an impact on Canada as well as the trade balance number. So if the trade balance number it comes in worse here, that will have a negative impact on a Canadian dollar, which means dollar CAD could go up. So just keep that in mind. And the big day here will be Friday because we have non-farm number. This is a major news. And as a result of that, it will have a big impact on the US dollar. So do keep that in mind. We also have employment data coming out of Canada at the same time. That will be important. So in the non-farm payroll here, there are three numbers that we have to take care of. There's the non-farm employment number, hourly earnings, and employment rates. So any one of these could have a big impact on the US dollar. Now, we do have Bank of England Governor Carney and Fed Chair Powell speaking as well. So again, Bank of England is at that point where their numbers, the data has been coming out well. Good numbers have been posted and inflation has been high. So now there's pressure on Bank of England to raise rates. So the comments from Bank of England have become more important now. So do keep that in mind as we proceed. With Fed Chair Powell, everything's been, we had that FOMC announcement, so his stance is fairly clear. But again, anything that unexpected that comes out of the speech will move the market. So again, these things are important and we do need to pay attention to them. So now let's go on to our charts. Okay, so we'll start off with the Euro US dollar. So Euro has been trading in this range for a while now. So this is the range. If you take a look, there's an outside range about there. If we were to move this, so this is the range that Euro has been trading in. And then there has been this inside range, which is right about there. And that's what we have seen Euro just go back and forth. So it's still range bound within those two levels. And we have a weekly pin bar to the downside. So I'm looking for Euro to drop further. My bias for Euro dollar is bearish. First target would be 1.2230, which is the first internal range, bottom of the range here. The second one will be 1.2150. So those will be the two targets to the downside. But overall, this is a range-bound market. So if price were to go higher, the 2480 level here would be a level to look for a potential short because we are still in a range-bound market. And as such, we sell the highs and we buy the bottoms, right? So that's how I am viewing this at this point. And so our targets here, my bias is to the downside. The first target is 1.2230 and second target is 1.2150 to the downside. So Euro dollar bias to the downside. Pound here, pound dollar. I have my charts marked up. So let me just get rid of some of these things here. If you're following me on the Turning Pro Challenge, one thing of up-leveling that I have been doing is marking the charts. It's a very good exercise to train your brain to see things. So I highly recommend that. And hence you see all these marked up charts here. All right, so pound dollar here, we have had a nice weekly bearish close. So that's a nice candle close. I'm looking for price to drop further here. Again, this is in a bit of a range as well. But last 3 weeks were bullish, and now this is the first bearish candle we have seen in a few weeks. So biases to the downside. My first target would be 1.3850. So 138.50 is the first target. Second target is a 1.3720, which is the bottom of this candle here. So overall bias is to the downside for pound dollar here. Australian dollar. This one here, the bias is to the downside as well. And I'm looking for a further drop. First target would be 76.20, which is fairly close. So we could likely go lower here. 75.37 area will be the next target here. Now we do have interest rate statement from Australia, and that could move the market because that would be a wild card that we don't know how what kind of comments will come out of that. But overall, the stance from Reserve Bank of Australia hasn't been bullish. So however, it could change, and that could change things. But for now, the bias is to the downside, and target would be 0.7537 level. New Zealand dollar here, we had talked about this bearish trend line for this. And so price did go into the trend line, and from there it dropped like we had expected. So right now the bias is to the downside because we have this doji here, which shows rejection from the trend line. And the first target would be 71.50 level. And the second target will be 70.80 level. So 0.7080 level will be the second target. Again, the bias is to the downside for New Zealand US dollar as well. Dollar CAD. Dollar CAD has been interesting. So dollar CAD has been our Canadian dollar, I should say, has been relatively strong compared to other currencies, other commodity currencies like Australian dollar and New Zealand dollar. Generally, they tend to move together. So if New Zealand US dollar is going down and Aussie dollar is going down, dollar CAD will be going up. However, that hasn't been the case. So for the last week here, the bias was to the downside. And this week, we have had a fairly small move, and it's been neutral. So price opened and closed at exactly the same level here. Very, very neutral candle close. So we need to be careful with this one. Okay, so there are two scenarios that could play out here. One, we have a high established, so we move lower, do this, and then drop, right? That would be the base case scenario. So I'm looking for price to push up and then do a drop. And the target in this case would be 1.2680 level. However, another thing is that we are into support here, right? Another thing that could happen is price comes into support at 1.2820 and then bounces up to the upside, because we do have this little trend line to the upside, right? So those are the two scenarios. It's just sitting at that interesting level where it could go either way. So this could have been a pullback for a further move to the upside, and we don't know at this point. It could have been one of these, right? Or this one could just be, a further push to the downside. So we could get a little bit of a pullback here into where this previous pin is. Price drops and then does another move to the downside. And like I said, in the case, the target would be 1.2680. So what's the important thing to look at would be 128.20 level. If the price holds above the 128.20 level, like it has done for the last 4 weeks, then chances are it's going to go higher. And in that case, it could go all the way up into 1.3120 level. However, if the price does break through this 128.20 level, then I'm looking for price to drop further into 126.80 level. So that's how I will play that one. Euro Swiss franc here. We have a pin bar. Let me get rid of a few. Okay, so this is where we are. We have this lower high here, but we see a rejection. So I'm looking for price to drop further. And in this case, so this is a pin bar, even though there's bullishness in this candle, but overall it's not overly bullish. So we have had a couple of dojis in the middle, and then we have pushed to the upside, which has failed. So I'm looking for price to drop here, and the target would be 1.1580 level. So bias is to the downside for Euro Swiss franc. Pound Swiss franc here, this one has been, so we have a doji here, and now I'm looking for price to move lower. So if we look here, let me get rid of that. So if you take a look, see how this has been a very strong resistance level. So 3 times price has come into this level and it has failed. So now we have a doji, a little pin bar here. So I'm looking for price to drop further. And the target here would be 1.3150. So looking for price to move lower for pound Swiss franc. Dollar Swiss franc here, we have this range that the price has been trading in. So I will trade this as a range bound move for now. If the price goes to test this 95.80 level, I'm looking for it to drop. And if it comes into the 94.20 level, then it may push higher. But right now we are sitting into the high here. So I would be looking for price to drop. So the move that I'm looking for is this. Price goes and tests the high of the range, and then drops from there. So my bias is to the downside or range bound within the range. I'm looking for price to move towards the bottom of the range into 0.9420 level. So bias to the downside. Pound yen here. Let's go to the weekly. Pound yen has been in this, in a bit of a, kind of like the Swiss franc as well. It's been pushing up higher, but hasn't really gained much momentum to the downside. And we have rejected the same level twice now on the weekly basis. So I'm looking for pound yen to drop. First target would be 147.20 level, and second target would be 145.00. So bias for pound yen will be to the downside. Euro yen here has been range bound as well. So if you take a look at the last few weeks, you will notice that price has just stayed in this range. And now we have seen price push up to the high. But again, looks like we're getting rejection at the same level. So if we take a look at daily, we can see this better. See how price has been reacting to this 131.80 level. So now I'm looking for price to come towards the bottom of the range. So my bias is to the downside, looking for price to come into this 129.20 area to the downside. So Euro yen as well, biases to the downside. Dollar yen, let's take a quick peek here. We are seeing rejection, too many. Okay, so this one as well, overall bias has been to the downside. We are into the high. We are pushing into the highs here. With this one, I would look for the same thing here. We are into important support and resistance right here. So I would, but overall, see how it's been sliding lower. So there's this support and resistance, or sorry, I should say a trend line here, downtrending line. So with this one, the move that I would look for would be a bit of a push to the upside and then a bounce off of the trend line. But overall, moving towards the bottom here, 104.60 will be the target to the downside. So bias still stays to the downside here, even though there's a bullish candle close. My bias will be to the downside because it has this trend line that's trending to the downside. But overall, dollar yen is a little bit stronger than the other yen crosses. Okay, so gold. Let's take a look at gold. Euro CAD and Euro Aussie as well. Okay, let me see if I can find those charts. Oh, gold was right here. Okay, gold is range bound as well. So with this one, it is like it's been in this range for several weeks now, and we had talked about how price was into the high, so it may drop. So it's kind of it's doing this, but not quite this. It has a shallower downtrending line here. This one was a steeper trending line to the downside. So let me just draw it out here. So back here, we had this, and now we have that, right? So overall, though, they're both to the downside. So we have a bearish candle close. I'm looking for price to drop. So right now, we are right in the middle of the range. So I will look for it to come lower into 1304.25, so into the bottom of the range. So that will be the first target to the downside. Now we could get a bit of a pullback. Anytime we have a nice move here, we could generally get a pullback and then a drop. So be mindful of that back into these pins, but the bias is to the downside for gold. And then the other one that Euro CAD and Euro Aussie. Euro CAD here. Euro CAD looks bearish. We have seen the rejection of the high. We have this pin bar looking for price to drop here. So 1.5750 would be my target to the downside for Euro CAD, and then Euro Aussie. Okay, let me just pull up a chart here. We're looking for Euro Aussie. Euro Aussie, here we go. Okay, Euro Aussie, let's go to a weekly chart. So that looks like a rejection to me. So we're into the highs here. We have a rejection pin bar. I'm looking for price to drop into the next support and resistance level. The target here would be 158.50 to the downside. So bias will be to the downside for Euro Aussie as well. All right, so any other questions? Okay, so if not, I have an announcement to make. So I have talked a fair bit about the trade room that I run. And as part of the trade room, you get the daily analysis. So this is a weekly analysis that we usually start the week with. But every day we do the daily analysis and we make projections on where the price or where we're expecting the market to go. Now, as a part of the trade room, you get that. And you also, when I enter a trade, you get the trade setups with stop loss and take profit targets as well. Every Friday, I do a members only webinar. And then you also get my pivot point indicator, which I tend to use a lot when trading. And the cost for this service is $97 a month. But I also offer better plans if you choose to pay on a yearly or a semi-yearly basis. However, the big announcement is that I will not be offering this service anymore. So this is the last week. You can actually purchase the trading signals or in this format. I'm shaking up the way that I'm doing things, and just basically doing a big paradigm shift on how we trade and how I support all the people who follow me in terms of my trade room and other services, but trade room is the main one. So I'm changing that. We're doing a big shift in that, which means the prices will be going up. I'll be providing a lot more support. But anybody who's already part of the trade room or who joins this week, they will already be part of this program. The price is going to go up to $997, and I'm going to be doing a lot more coaching, and the focus will be collectively working together like really doing a big shift in this whole industry. I think the whole industry is a little bit messed up. So I'm taking a different approach to it. So, but this will be the last time last time I'll be offering this service as is. So it'll go up to $997 a month. So I'm looking for a much bigger results as well out of the trade room. And as such, I'll be doing things very differently. So anyway, so this is the last time. If you do want to purchase, if you have not joined, you can join it. And then starting next week, like I said, I'll be making some changes, and we'll be coming up with some different programs and stuff. All right, so that's all I have. If you guys do want to join, those are the links there that you can use to join the trade room, and then you will automatically be part of it. You won't have to pay anymore. You'll be grandfathered at whatever plan that you're in. For as long as you stay with the trade room, you will only be charged that, regardless of how much more effort I put in. You won't have to pay any more. So that's why this is a good opportunity to get in on it if you're interested. All right, so we'll wrap it up here. You guys have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the rest of the Easter weekend with your family, and I will see you next week then. You're welcome. Bye for now.